Last Man Home. On the Sky Road. Written by John Miro. Part 10. I just stood there staring through the ruined reactor room door and listening to the Samadon rattle coming through from the other side. I knew Drew like a brother, and I knew when he was pissed, and he was pissed. But worse, Drew was scared. He'd woken up with somebody cutting on him, and no one there to back him up. Drew was out of his mind, but not with killer rage, with terror, and he was ready to do anything he could to get away from his tormentors. The door into the reactor chamber was sliced up by beams, peppered with holes and ruptures from conventional weapons, both of which I had a pretty good idea he'd run out of ammo or charge for. The sound of a bull Samadon hammering madly on a door after blowing the one before it to hell made me pretty sure he wasn't going to cut any of us down when we went. Which was good in one way. He still had plenty of tentacles, the better to snap our necks with, poke holes through our bodies with, and generally mess us up with. I rubbed at my shoulder unconsciously. I knew what I was talking about. We all stayed silent through another rain of blows, followed by panting and more rattling. Maybe he'll get tired and take a nap. I looked over at the Sky Road's newly promoted chief of security. Priya Whitaker's eyes were wide. About then, Drew wailed and started hammering again, his enraged rattle louder than ever. "Didn't think so," she muttered. "Geez, I hate that sound." "Me too," I grinned at her. No, not because the situation was anywhere close to ha-ha funny, but because, at last, the lady looked a little off her game. "It's not as bad when he's running ahead of you." "Not sure I believe you on that," she muttered, and finally tore her eyes away from the door. She scowled when she saw my grin. "So what are you going to do about this?" "Why is this our problem?" Teddy squeaked up at her. I agreed with the little guy, in principle, but I knew the answer. "'Cause he's our friend. 'Cause they know I talked him down before. And 'cause of that." I jerked my thumb over my shoulder at the open bulkhead doors. On the other side of Whitaker, Gris swore in Shelev, "They can't drop the door remotely. And they're afraid if they storm the room, the big guy will blow us all to hell," Whitaker finished for him. She looked down at Teddy. "Good enough for you, pal?" Teddy looked from Whitaker to me, then back to the door ahead as a fresh round of metal against metal blows gonged out at us. They were followed by more rattling. I swear to God, Whitaker backed up a step. "I don't want to have to do anything here." My stomach dropped. I remembered who I was looking at. Another survivor of the war with the Elotans. She was hard as nails, close to fearless or a reasonable facsimile thereof, and she didn't know this Sammy from a hole in the ground. All that aside, I realized she was less scared of him than she was scared that she'd have to do more hurting. My eyes started examining her again, not in admiration this time, looking for what she was carrying, and wondering if I could stop her from using it on my friend if she decided she had to. "Go easy, big guy," Teddy growled and started towards the door. I stepped in front of him. He bared his fangs at me. "Can't be you, Ted," I told him. "It has to be me," he hissed, but after a couple of ragged breaths, the fangs disappeared. Teddy looked away. "I let him take him, Sarge. It has to be me that goes in." Gris waddled in front of Teddy. "Can't be you, because you know ships better than me and Jake put together, and if we can't talk him down, we need that bulkhead door closed." Teddy looked back at the door, back at Gris, back at the door that Drew was hammering on the other side of, and then back to Gris. "Are you freaking kidding me? Do I sound Scottish?" He pointed all around with fingers and tail. "Does this look like a fictional starship made of cardboard? I'd need a crane, plastic explosives, and/or a deity actually doing their job to get that door closed." We just waited until he ran out of words. Then, as I knew would happen, the frustration bleeding out from between Teddy's every scale turned back into fear for his friend, and he slumped over. "Fine, I'll do it." He grabbed Gris by the collar of his expensive vest. "Come on, fancy pants. The impossible is a two-man job. Gris didn't argue. We all gave each other the way too familiar gaze and nod, and Teddy and Gris walked back silently the way they came. You know he's right, Whitaker all but whispered. They're not getting that door closed. I heard it in her voice. She understood. Maybe I can keep them safe. A one-sided smile flashed and disappeared. Maybe they won't have to watch you kill your friend, you mean? I wanted to pretend to be angry at her, but she was right about that part too. So this is why your captain didn't send in the clowns, I said, changing the subject. She snorted and rolled her shoulder towards me. Just the clown queen. Her garish metal epaulets and shoulder patches almost blinded me. And, yeah, the captain knows we're ash in the vacuum if Druid gets that door open. I walked over to her, doing my best to look cool and not jump out of my skin every time Drew hammered on the reactor door. Okay, I sighed. Where is it? Whitaker did a pretty good job of looking cool under pressure herself. She flashed me an innocent look for half a second, then held her left hand out. There was a plasma shooter in it, lethal and close to the size of a cannon. I couldn't help myself. I looked her over again and raised an eyebrow. Where were you hiding that? Whitaker's lips pursed, fighting a smile. Get us out of this, and I'll show you, Sarge. Yeah? I asked. Yeah, she promised. Her hand took mine and pressed the weapon into my palm. Least I can do. The weight of the weapon and the mission wiped the smile from both our faces. My brains felt more like guacamole than they usually did, and I was pretty sure my pituitary gland was on empty. If I needed any adrenaline to get through this, I'd have to order out for it. How can the same shit happen twice? I looked back at the door. Really thought I was done burying my friends. Least you have some left, Whitaker told me. I shook my head. See you wrong about that, Whitaker. Priya, she corrected me. Priya. We get out of this, and you get a standing invitation in my life, right up to a speaking gig at my funeral. Deal. Just make it a long way off, Sarge. Need some time to polish up on public speaking. We gave each other the same soldier's gaze I'd shared with Teddy and Gris, and I walked to the door to talk to my friend. I stuffed the shooter in the back of my pants and wiggled it to get the draw right. Here we go. Again, I said, and walked through the door. Last Man Home. On the Sky Road. Written and recorded by John Miro. Stay tuned.